People, Deluded, I'm back again. I've got Alex, aka the Different Knock. Obviously, the season's done, but the content has to keep pushing. So, how you doing, my friend, man? You seem awake and alive and stuff.
How are you doing, my friend?
As we spoke about, Ian Wright and Ray Parler settings, man. I'm 70%, man, but I'm still here, man. I'm still here. I wish I was you. I'm looking at you. You look full of life. I wish I was you, man. We said this was gonna happen last night, and now look at us. Yeah, man. I mean, I had a good night, but you've had a good week, man. You know you've been doing all week.
It was good. Yeah, I was in Gran Canaria, so this is my first time recording. I had yesterday it was a complete write-off. I was like falling asleep while in conversations type stuff. It was horrendous. But we're back.
How much did you drink?
It was me and two of my mates. It was one of those things where we were like, we're not going to drink every night. It's so stupid, like whatever. And it gets to like 6, 7, and you're like, we could have one. Though.
Nothing else to do with it, really.
And then you're sat around, you're watching the hotel entertainment, and there's a bit of boogie and whatever. You have a couple of rum and cokes, and you're like, right, let's go. And
let's go, man. Vamos, man.
Exactly. But it was great. We had a good time.
Oh, man, it's nice to see you had a good holiday. You're recharged, man. I'm probably going to take the smile off your face, depending on how you feel about this. In fact, probably not, because you're like me. We're quite balanced on things. How you feeling now that the season's done, man, and you've got time to let the dust settle and, talk about the good, the bad? How you feeling about the season that's just gone, man?
Yeah, it's just quickly, is your mic on, or is it it might be my headphones?
Yeah. You can't hear me?
No, your mic's. I think you just sound slightly different. Could be me.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, that's good. All good.
I'm not scared. But yeah, go on.
All good. I can't. I know there will be people listening and watching this who are disappointed, and that's completely understandable. It's football is a very personal thing. You so your sort of mates, people you
an
talk
emotional
to,
thing as well, man.
Emotional things who you're tied to, and I often think about this. And we've said this before on this show. Like, I'm a relative. I'm 26. Like, I'm a relatively young fan. Can't really remember like the last time Arsenal won a league title. So my expectations are set at a certain level, and everyone's individual, right? I just can't personally find myself anything other than pretty proud, pretty positive and hopeful for the future. Obviously disappointed it didn't happen, but I think I've again said this before. We were in such a mad situation where we either would beat the best Premier League team of all time with the best manager of all time, or we fail. What? Like, I just can't get on board with that.
He's preaching.
So look, I just find it really it's a hard one to analyze, to be honest, because all we can do is look at ourselves, is really look at ourselves and go, how can we improve? I'd love to talk about that with you, like how you feel we can actually move forward and get better, not just in the market. I think people always focus on signings and stuff, but I think there's a lot of things we can do as a club to improve. So in no way am I sat here saying season's over, Man City or Tuchel, we can't even touch it. No, we can improve. We can 100% improve. And there's things that I think we will do. And Arteta himself has said, there was an interview with him where he said, we're still like a way off what he wants. So we know we're on this path, right? And we've seen improvements every single year.
Even on the last day of the season, the man said, "Don't be happy. Like we've got many years to go up." Essentially,
I love that so much. Just thinking of Odegaard and Havertz hanging out. Like
Wall Street, that picture, man.
Yeah. But yeah, in conclusion, like there's so much to be positive for in the future. Every summer since about 2021, we've sat here going, "Oh, a bit of a disappointing season. Can we improve?" And we do. So we will. It's cool.
I think you're bang on the money, man. I think you articulated it perfectly there. Like, I don't tell people what to think, neither do you, and I can't tell you what to think. Everyone interprets things differently. But similar to you, of course, on one hand, you could say it's a missed opportunity where, we could have won the Premier League title. We did flirt with it. As you said, with improvements, we fell off the season before. We fell off long before the last day of the season. And as you said, essentially we're playing this juggernaut of a Manchester City side. We took them to the last day of the season and there was a bit of hope. So essentially there is improvements. You said something and I wholeheartedly agree in that in terms of improvement. Now, we both know, we'll get into it, but we know there's some positions we could sign and address. But internally, what you getting at when you say we could improve for you anyways?
So I think there's a number of things. I think firstly, from a tactical perspective, I'd like to see a couple more things. I'd like to see more carries from deep. I think that would have come with Timber, as in there's a lot of I think Declan Rice spoke about in that article with the Athletic. There's a lot of short passes. There's a lot of, we've managed to find a way of going long. I think you can go through a round or over teams. And I basically don't think we're going through teams enough in terms of going direct balls through the middle, in terms of carries through the middle and attracting markers. I think Jurien Timber would have been a massive part of that, by the way. And we saw that early on in the
Unicorn
season.
of a player, man.
Like and to have someone who is so capable of doing that would have changed things. So this is may have already actually been fixed. So that's one thing. I'd love to see more half space crossing. So I think part of this is Martin Odegaard. Two things. I think part of this is Martin Odegaard is on the side when naturally he wants to go back to Saka and body out and go in. He also doesn't always have a target in the box in that way. Havertz obviously is a target, but he's not jumping onto the end of crosses. He's not at the back stick. He's not making those across the box runs type. He's not that sort of
traditional striker kind of runs on a consistent basis, right?
Target, but he's a connector. So that might come with a different type of profile up front. I'd like to see us manage games better, and also might come with Odegaard possibly changing positions and being even more free next season, possibly, and Saka coming inside. Who knows? I'd like to see us becoming a little bit more. I didn't feel we managed certain game moments particularly well. I think basically things just played out a little bit too long. You're not going to get your tactics right every single week. It's not going to happen. We're sat here after the fact, able to rewatch games and analyze and go, "Oh, this is where it went wrong." Yeah. Easy for us to say.
Which is different from reality, yeah.
Easy for us to say after it. We probably weren't saying that in the moment.
Hindsight makes everyone a genius, man.
Exactly. So this is an in-game thing for Arteta. But like, for example, Aston Villa, that second half, it was too long before we addressed the physical that we were losing the physical battles. I remember after the game, Arteta said, "Yeah, beginning of the second half, we were losing the physical battle." I was going, you didn't do anything about it for like 30 minutes. So
people say you don't criticize Arteta, mate.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, but it's there are little moments in a season. So like that, things that didn't hurt us. For example, I thought like we needed to change something sooner. Just recent examples at Old Trafford. I thought we needed to change something sooner. I thought we needed to change something sooner against Spurs as well. Those didn't hurt us, but again, I thought we just.
But they were evident, yeah.
Yeah, just periods of a game where we'd lost control of it and lost, I think, our way a little bit, but we hadn't made either a substitution or a tweak or changed the position or a tactic or changed instructions or something. So, those are sort of the main ones. I've got some other ones, I'm sure, but those are sort of my main ones.
I think you're bang on the money, man. I think, we obviously could manage games better. I think to a degree, what you're alluding to, you're bang on, you're 100% right. But I think because of our improvements, we've kind of earned that. Like, I think one thing I've liked about Arsenal this season is historically, we've actually had to always be up here to win. If we're down there, we can't really get 3 points. But it's like we can put in 20 out of 10 performances and then competent performances. And I think there was a degree of that against Old Trafford against Man United, in that we know Arteta's given us homework to do. We've completed it. You shut up shop. This team can't open teams up. We stink up the place, and then we essentially walk away with stuff. But I do agree with you in that I do feel there's many things internally we could look at. As you said, I think we could have better game management. I think we could be a bit more street smart on occasion. It sounds crazy because we've killed teams, but I think we could have a bit more of a killer instinct. There's not too many times this has been on show. But I think we need to hold on to leads, because I look at, for me, the worst performance in the Premier League, Fulham away. I always forget we actually took the lead in that game. I know I'm reaching a bit in the Champions League, but you look at the Bayern Munich game, so at the Emirates. So there's many things we can improve on. I think the squad as well, and I think you'd agree as well. I think evidently, if we're talking about recruitment, before we get into players, it's a squad, because in many ways, we've had injuries. We haven't got a recognised striker as much as I like what we're doing. We've probably got what would you say, 14 players max that truly are trusted by Mikel Arteta, truly like that. So I think we've done well in that regards, but now it's about taking the next step. I remember when was it? Whenever Raya signed you, me and you were doing a video, and you gave a point about Raya and Ramsdale, about how Raya might not look evidently better than Ramsdale, but it's them extra percentages. I think that's what we've got to chase, because unfortunately, as much as the season was great, top 6 record is faultless, record clean sheet, second top goal scorers, ran it down to the last day of the season, and all of the great statistics. It's not enough. And I'm being harsh, because it's almost like an impossible job, but it isn't enough. How do you feel on them comments, which on one hand, I think even people that are quite critical on Mikel Arteta, bro. I think, you can have your opinions, disclaimer, if you believe in him and don't believe in him. But I think many people sometimes want to have their cake and eat it. And what I mean by that is, it's like they say City are so good, Pep's a generational coach, nobody can get near them. Then, as you kind of said, when Arteta does what he does, people say he's not the guy to get over the line. And that might be right, that might be wrong. But it's like, it's an impossible job for me. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, as we said,
you can't win.
Yeah. I think you have to pick one side. You either have to say that Pep's a bum, in which case, or Pep isn't as good as everyone says, in which case Arteta is doing a terrible job. Yeah. Well, I even think even then you could argue he's still doing a good job, but fine, you could say he's still not getting over the line. Let's get rid of him. Or you have to accept that what he actually is. It's one of those things that will, in the same way that we'll look back on Sir Alex and sort of in an era, and we'll just go like that Sir Alex in a different way. I think Pep's gone higher and hit new levels. Sir Alex was a longevity, right? We won't see that longevity again. That we won't.
I hope not. I really hope not.
26 years at a club and create that kind of dynasty. It won't happen. It's just won't. Like, we know it. It's the modern market, the modern era, social media, all that stuff. Like, but even just the job market's changed. People move on. Like, I'm sure people like uncles and aunties or whatever who have been in the same job for 30 years. That's just never going to happen. It's never going to happen
change,
in the modern market. We've got to do different things. Even you and I, with obviously we're pushing on the content thing and stuff, but there's so much less security in jobs and stuff now. So it's a complete new world. I just think we've got to judge it through fresh eyes, and we've got to try and see it again.
And open eyes as well, really.
And open eyes, yeah. I think just quickly to come back on something else you said, I also think the left-hand side will be huge to fix this summer as another kind of tactical thing. Just in terms of creating a dynamic, the right-hand side is not a problem in the sense that most teams have a side they go to most. Man City is actually the right-hand side as well. But the problem is when, for example, against Bayern Munich put like 14 fullbacks on Saka because they didn't feel that the left-hand side had a particular, and they were right. Do you know what I mean? They were right to do that because the left-hand side wasn't penetrative enough and didn't have enough new dynamics. Also, just thought of one more thing around the box as well. I think sometimes there's not enough. Towards the end of the season, we managed to find this, but especially towards the beginning, there wasn't enough variety in terms of it felt like we were doing that sort of horseshoe thing around the box. Towards the end of the season, we were creating those kind of, whether it's Trossard having shots on the edge or the cutbacks, whatever, just trying to find that every match. But again, as you said earlier, we're splitting hairs here because the margin of improvement is so small. It's so small.
I think you're bang on the money, man. And me and you have spoken at lengths with that left-hand side. Me personally, I feel, we need to sign a central midfielder. I like what Jorginho's doing. Obviously, Partey will get onto him, but he's decent. I don't think we're going to get to that next level without that long-term partner for Declan Rice and completing that trio in midfield. And it's like what you said, there's nothing wrong with having a bias. At the end of the day, Benjamin White's always available. Saka and Odegaard are two of our key players. Naturally, the game is going to run through them. But the season before the last one that's just gone, it felt like a refreshing one for me in the sense of we looked equally as kind of threatening on both sides, and I think we need to get to that now. Obviously, look at Martinelli's form. There's been injuries, probably Mikel Arteta's own fault in the sense of we didn't sign a central midfielder last summer. The Kai Havertz experiment there didn't work, so there's a lot of factors. I wanted to ask you as well, do we overstate the need for a striker at this club, and do we actually need a striker?
We're going to write a video about this today. I think it's about asking.
Make sure you turn on your notification bells for that, folks.
Asking the right question. The question is not, do Arsenal need a striker? The question is, what do Arsenal need in their attack? Because we all know something needs to change, right? But I suppose the striker question is normally it's a goals question. We don't need more goals. We don't.
We're second top goal scorer.
We scored more goals than the Invincibles. So we don't need more goals. That's as in, or maybe you always want to score more goals, but that can't be the primary number one thing, So, and you can maybe look at, okay, but during a season, was there a period where we weren't scoring enough goals? Yeah, fine. But over the course of a season, we scored enough goals, and actually spreading around your goal scorers, unless you have an Erling Haaland or a Lewandowski, which point that player out to me on the market. And then what's funny is people go, this player, that player. Every year, there's always players. There's always, an Ivan Toney, whatever. Speak to me in a year. Those types of players, they pop up and then they drop down and everyone forgets about them. But the Haalands, the Lewandowskis, those types of players, they're special. The only one on the market that might be him is Osimhen. but I don't know yet. I really don't know on that. So I think it's about asking the right question. What are we missing from our attack? And I say, okay, here's what I think. We're missing transitional inevitability. I'm like you. Transitional inevitability.
Go straight for no reason.
we're missing height, a little bit of height, I think, especially
I agree.
out wide.
Sounds crazy to say that, but I agree.
Outside of Havertz, it's quite a small front line.
It is.
We're missing pace. We're missing ball striking. We're missing a moments player. I think we're missing someone who can move centre backs in a different way. Now, what do I mean by that? Havertz, in the way he moves, is dragging centre backs, not physically, not with his arms or whatever. I want someone who can hold someone off. Lukaku, Pablo Mari, Chelsea 2021-esque. Just stay there, bruv. I'm going to go around you. That kind of moving centre backs.
And then roll your man, yeah.
That kind of moving centre backs. Someone who's a bit more of a line leader and a channel runner. There's lots of stuff I'm missing, right, in that forward line, yeah? I think a part of this conversation is Mikel Arteta allowing a player to step outside of the structure a little bit. That's another part of this conversation. But in terms of profiles that we're missing, how do you solve that? That's the question. So does that
I'm happy I'm not the gaffer, man. I don't have a clue.
So does that look like a winger? Does that look like a striker? Does that look like a central midfielder? I don't know. Then what you have to do is look at the market and go, okay, well, what options are available? And then you can start to look at names and do they fit, whatever. But the base question of, that most Arsenal fans are asking is Arsenal need a number 9 or whatever. I just think we have to, for me, it's like going, what are we really asking for when we say a number 9? Because it's not Erling Haaland, is it? And
we'd love that, but it's not possible, is it? And I think you're right on terms of the right questions, because kind of piggybacking off what you said, I think a lot of people, when they talk about a Mikel Arteta striker, naturally goals. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want more goals or a striker's job isn't to score goals. But as you know, in the modern day, arguably our first attacker is David Raya, our first defender is currently Kai Havertz, and then probably Odegaard. So it's all the other facets. Can they affect the game without necessarily scoring? As you said, can they bring something different? Can they? It's a bit weird because naturally, if we want to be more competitive, we have to quote unquote upset the balance, because you could say that with Raya coming in kind of upsetted the balance. But I think it just comes down to we need a different option. There has been times, I said it in December when you was on my show, in that we've got some great players. I just feel in December they struggled psychologically. In between that, they're doing what they're doing. I think another attacker would have helped. And I always say, if you sit in August and you look at all of the attackers, right? Saka, for me, is the only one you could sit there and say 100% you're going to be up there for goals and assists. That's not to say the other players aren't good. I know we're going to score goals. We've done it in the last 2 years, but I just don't know how, and I just don't know who. And I think there's a lot of really and truly volatility there in that regards. Like, I think Havertz is settled. I just don't know if you're going to get double figures. I don't know if someone like Trossard is going to do such. You compare the last 2 seasons from Martinelli and Jesus, and it's quite conflicting. So I do think we need that. I think you said it there, and I would still like to continue with height, but what really is there on the market? Now, we're not scouts. We're not Mikel Arteta. I'm sure when you've got all the data available, you could find someone. But the profile, are we going to go for a traditional kind of bagsman? Is it going to actually be a wideman that could kind of play across the front three? I'm not too sure. I mean, me and you would love Isaac in it, but like if you just type his name in on Google, they're saying 90 to 150 million. It's fair to say that's done. Osimhen's done as well. So who knows who it is?
With Isaac, I look at the underlying metrics for Isaac, and there's a player there. I saw this thing the other day. Yep. I don't know if you saw it. I tweeted it out, but it was essentially he's in. Let me find it. Might be able to share it with you actually. But essentially he's in numbers wise. Here it is. I'll send it to you on WhatsApp and see if you can put it on the screen. When someone is in these types of conversations that he's here, so it's essentially this is expected goals on target versus expected goals per 90. You got Haaland way out there. Isaac's next in a Newcastle side. That is
wavy. Wilson's not doing half bad himself based on this.
Yeah, Wilson. Salah's in this number. So when you've got someone in there, I think Wilson's got a smaller sample size. So
probably screwed.
Got Palmer, the most dangerous players in the league, and Isaac's there in a Newcastle side that I would suggest aren't necessarily based on how much. If you think about how they play, it's a lot of transition. So they're not exactly creating loads of threat, compared to, let's say, a City or an Arsenal, whatever, per game. I look at Isaac and I think I don't know. I think there's something there. There's many different ways to skin a cat. It's not necessarily, this, that, or the other, or we have to do this or we have to do that. But
we have to be fluid and adaptable, man.
100%. And you have to look at the market and see what that is dictating to you to some degree, because the market will dictate what you're going to do.
What do you think is dictating so far as a fan?
I think it's a strange one in that, and maybe this is just coming from my thinking, but I don't think there's a straightforward answer this year in the way that there was with Declan Rice last year. Arsenal had a big problem last year, and it was the base of their midfield, and it was their out of possession. Well, big problem. They came second. They had a problem last year, and it was their out of possession work and the base of their midfield, and sort of bolstering something in there. I've never seen a more, yes, okay, he's expensive, but an obvious pick than Declan Rice. He was the perfect age, the perfect physicality, the perfect mental profile, the perfect technical profile. He was, in a contract
so
situation,
receptive to learning as well. He's just so perfect, isn't it? Really,
literally the perfect signing. That isn't here this summer. That isn't on the market. I don't see anyone who I go.
You're right.
There's
90%, there's 80%, but it's not 100% with Declan Rice. Which, going back, the only question mark you could have about Declan Rice was, can you get over the line? How good is West Ham's willingness to get a move done? Which, obviously, in hindsight, it worked out.
What were the question marks about Rice? Of course, there's always question marks about players. But if you compare the question marks about, let's say, an Isak, you mention Isak's name on social media or whatever, and you get, injury record, you get, can he adapt? You get, can he, is he, but we need this type of player, we need that type of player. When you said Rice last summer, it was basically like, yeah, but he's going to cost loads, or maybe a couple of question marks about his passing. That was about it.
You're going to steal him from us.
Or City going to steal him. Yeah, so they're not question marks particularly about the player. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting market. I imagine they will do things that we don't expect, as always. But we'll see. We'll see.
We have no choice but to see, man. And again, I know the thing that gives me a lot of hope is Mikel Arteta. As much as the fans, have their back and forth, that man feels like, to me, he's got this burning desire to not only just win the league, but achieve greatness in that, obviously, get this club, pardon me, back to where it needs to be. And I think Mikel Arteta, they probably know who they're going for now. I think they'll be fluid. I guess, there could be spanners in the works in terms of who's staying, who's going, etc. Personally, I would want a striker. I think midfield has to be addressed. I think you need more depth in that midfield. I think you need Declan Rice. Declan Rice needs help. Like, as great as he's been, I think there's been times where, when Havertz was struggling in midfield, when he's had to deal with Partey not being there or any other partners, he's had to carry a lot of the burden. And as you said, he provides us with a lot of physicality, a lot of dynamism. Obviously, the role he's playing is not, when he has played as a 6, it's more like a Rodri kind of 6 versus a traditional kind of English 6. He's been playing as an 8. So I think there's so much that we need to do. Speaking of midfield, I know you've seen the rumours because I saw you tweet about it. Thomas Partey, man. I mean, the Fabrizios, the Charles Watts of this world, they're saying it looks like he's probably going to depart. Where are you at with that? Because on quality, I wouldn't want to lose Partey. And I think there's reasons to keep him. But in the grand scheme of things, where you look at his age, his injuries, and most importantly, if we could, upgrade is not the right word, but if we could find someone that's more fit, I'm cool with that, really. But where are you at?
I'll send you another graph. Here we are. So let me just say, so this is by a guy called Ed George Taylor on Twitter. Where
did you send it? What's up?
I'm just going to put it on WhatsApp to you. So this is essentially minutes played versus cost per minute.
Oh, this is going to be an ugly. See, it'd probably be an ugly graph where Partey's linked to.
Yeah. Let me get that. So in terms of, I think he gave me the numbers specifically on Partey. So he said, as an example, Thomas Partey costs us £13,115 per minute played. So we need a more slightly bigger conversation than Partey, I think, here, because in certain positions in the first team, you now can't improve on them. You literally, unless there's a player that I can't think of, how do you improve on William Saliba?
But I couldn't tell you. Unless you get one of the more informed centre backs, and they're going to cost a lot. You can't really improve on that. You can only improve him himself. You're right.
And someone might say, okay, well, Virgil van Dijk. You're not getting Virgil van Dijk.
You're not getting him or any of them guys.
Who are you actually getting who is better in world football than William Saliba or Declan Rice or let's say Saka? Let's say
Christian
those
Romero and some them lot down the road would say.
In terms of age profile, in terms of quality, in terms of all that stuff. Like I don't think the market can give you an answer with those players. So now we've hit a ceiling, yeah. When you've done that, to actually improve the squad, you have to start looking below, and obviously it's ceiling and floor. And the focus, I think, now has to go a lot more on the floor.
Squad, like we said earlier.
Yeah, 100%. And then you have to start asking different questions about the squad. Less qualitative questions, because again, we've already hit the quality now can't be improved upon. You can't layer on top. It's not about that. I think it's now asking, how do we actually improve this sort of this middle bit here? How do you do that?
So that indirectly, it gets fingied as well, man.
Yeah.
So on the money.
How do you do that? Okay, well, you look at availability, you look at wages, you look at how much they're contributing, etc., and you look across the squad, and there's a couple of players that I look at, and let me give you a good example first. So Leandro Trossard is the perfect example of a maximized squad place.
Value for money, man.
Value for money. Because let's say, for argument's sake, we couldn't lay it. Let's say for the ease of argument, you cannot get better than our left winger. Say we have a left winger, and our next left winger is Leandro Trossard. How do we improve on that position? Okay, well, can we get better than someone who's versatile, 90k per week, is breaking records in terms of goal involvements as a substitute, is experienced? Is it like in the market, you can't improve on that. So the floor is also maximized, if you see what I mean. Thomas Partey, and I would also say Gabriel Jesus, they're not maximized squad places. They're not maximized in terms of it. They're brilliant players, but they're not maximized in terms of availability. They're not maximized in terms of
the key thing as well, yeah.
Cost per output, especially with Jesus. I think it's 8 goals and assists or whatever in the league. So if we want to improve, the question marks will come with. But Thomas Partey is a brilliant player. It's like, yeah, he is a brilliant player. No, the quality is not a question anymore. The question marks have to become more about, are we maximizing every single squad place? Because again, we can't get better in the first. We can't layer on top in the first team. Yep. So yeah, I just think with Partey, he is a brilliant player, a fantastic player on his day. He has certain qualities that I don't see in many players in world football.
Make him a unicorn in that regards because of his qualities.
He absolutely is. He absolutely is a unicorn in terms of the qualities he has. But I just think to move forward as a squad, we need to stop asking quality questions and start asking, can we maximize the squad questions? And I think in that question, Thomas Partey, Gabi Jesus might have to exit.
And it's a bit of a weird one because I don't disagree with what you're saying, but when you look at the fact that we've got stability, where you look at, I wouldn't know how to articulate it, but I think to different degrees, there's players that are more likely to leave. I think you've got, unfortunately, the Tierney's, the Lokongas, to the Vares, is that kind of bracket of players that need to go. And he's not in that same bracket, but Ramsdale, because of the Raya dynamic. And I think once you look past that, I then think there's players that maybe the club will be open to offers, open to moving on if the opportunity presented itself. That's where I look at, your Smith Rowes, your Thomas Partey's, your Gabriel Jesus's, your Zinchenko's, if I haven't said his name, them kind of players. But then I look at it and I'm not saying you're saying this or anyone, because we both know it's not FIFA, but we finally got some stability. Does it make sense to really sell all of these players and then bring in new ones that are going to have to adjust, and we're going to have to say all of those things? Now, we all know all these players are not going to leave. I think Thomas Partey, similar to last season, is a thing where we won't force you out. We might make it clear that you're available, and we hope to do one better than last year, which is essentially move you on. Gabriel Jesus, I think we have to stick with him for a year as a squad player at least. Obviously, next season provides different kind of question marks. And I think it goes without saying, where you look at the Eddie Nketiahs, the Ramsdales, the Reece Nelsons, you could see why, they need to be moved on. I think Kyrill's a bit of a unique one in that I think we should keep him. I think he will be fine. I just feel in terms of, how the market is going to look, it always seems, based on newspaper reports, that Kyrill's always got offers. And if we sign a new left back owing to reports, obviously Timber's there. Whatever people have to say about Zinchenko, he's probably ahead of Kyrill in the pecking order. I wonder if the club would be open to making a profit. But as I said, I don't want Kyrill to leave, if I'm completely honest with you. You touched on it, man. And I think basically what you're saying is the best trait you could have is being available. And to be honest with you, as much as I like what Mikel Arteta is doing, that man is way too calculated, way too smart to not be having these conversations me and you are having at a much deeper level, probably
Yeah,
20 months ago.
Yeah.
You know, and as much as I like Arteta, I look back a few months ago, he said we've got one of the finished squads. Although this season's been good, we're still talking about injuries with certain players and profiles being lacked and kind of certain Achilles heels. That needs to be eradicated if we are to go to the next level, in my opinion. But as you said, we're on the right trajectory, essentially. And I can understand disappointment with certain things Mikel Arteta is doing, because he's not, you know, he makes mistakes. And I understand it with the players. But the cons and the pros are up here, really and truly. Now, these little cons that are here might harm us, but I don't get it, really and truly, man. What was I going to say to you as well? Do you think Kai Havertz is just a case of just playing up front now? Or do you think we might see him revert back into midfield and probably, you know, we hope he could stand out in the same way he did up front? And would you actually be for that? Me, I don't want to go back there. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think you said earlier about the Kai Havertz midfield experiment. I don't know. I think it might look different. Say we did sign Isak. I think we might find a dynamic that works with Kai Havertz as the kind of box crashing second striker type thing from midfield. We might find something that works. I don't know. Settings. You know, well, yeah, exactly. It's a good comparison. So, you know, it will depend on how the squad shapes out, whatever. I'm not against seeing him in the midfield again. Is it like, am I going into next season going, that's got to be the way we do it? You know, would I much prefer a Frankie de Jong at left 8? Of course I would. But in terms of finding things that make us work through the season, it happened this year. We found, you know, we tried things. Some worked, some didn't. We tried Thomas Partey right back, didn't quite work. Tried Gabriel.
Yeah. So long ago as well.
Exactly. Tried Gabriel dropping out, didn't quite work. We tried Kivior, that was working for a while, then it stopped working. We tried Kai Havertz in the midfield, didn't quite work. Put him up front, and it started working. You know, there's this idea that, you know, you're going to have this 11 and this fixed 11 and it's the perfect dynamics. It's going to work every single time and every single week, every single opposition.
Unless you're prime Barcelona, it's a myth.
It's not going to happen, guys. So we've got to find different dynamics. What we have is a player with a unique set of skills who can do a number of different things for you, and then pair him up. How does he look in a dual 10 next to Bukayo Saka? How does he look at a number 9 with a pacey runner next to him who's, you know, getting fed balls from a carrying left back? However you want to pull out the things, don't throw away a tool that is very, very clearly very, 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 very skilled, and that is Kai Havertz. So I'm not against seeing him as a midfielder. Again, would it be my first pick in terms of, you know, if I'm going to be specific about dynamics I want to see? No. But I also don't think it's a crazy idea. And I think people, again, even when you're talking about Kivior with the left back thing, people saying, oh, you know, Kivior's, we've seen him at left back, but who's to say opening day of next season, would it be completely out of the realms of opportunity or ideas? Kivior comes in at left centre back. Everyone goes, what is going on? We have Jurriën Timber. 5 games later, we're all doing analysis saying why Kivior at centre back is genius.
I don't mind because we can get the content out.
You know, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, but you know, we're all saying why Kivior at centre back over Gabriel is genius because of this, that, and the other. We just have to, you know, be open to new ideas and hopefully get it right.
I think you're bang on, man. So what would you give this season out of 10? All in all, dust is settled. What would you give it out of 10? Give us a number, man.
I go 8. I'd go 8.
No half. No half numbers as well, making it difficult.
I can't
because I knew you was going to do that.
Yeah, I was probably going to go 8.5, but I'll go 8 because I think overall the cup competitions were a disappointment. But there's no getting around that. There's context, of course, but there's no getting around it. I think in the Champions League, I think we gave a good account of ourselves, but did we exceed anything? Not particularly. And in the Premier League, you could argue we stood still, according to some people. Now, of course, we didn't. We actually made a lot of progress in terms of.
They said we was going to fall off. Everyone's going to improve last summer, and like, we're just going to stand still. But all right, fair enough.
And here we are.
Errors come to an end in that.
More points, more goals, more everything in the league. Yeah, look, I can't. Oh, someone's coming in my room. I can't. Mikel, give me a 9. But yeah, I think.
That is scary.
I just think if 10 would be, you know, quadruple, and a 9 would be probably, well, honestly, probably a Premier League title. But you know, I think you can't go higher we've made so much progress. We've moved on. We've developed. We've created new dynamics. We've fixed the problems in the team, etc. So we've made so much progress. But getting over the line is when you get a 9 or a 10, I think.
I think it would be a 7 for me because that was the first number. I agree with everything you said. I feel for the large part of the season, we've been great. I actually think we've responded well to adversity at several points this season. Of course, there's times that we haven't. So I think there's resilience. Going back to what we spoke about, I think we're a lot more street smart in that we've got more gears to our game, really. If you want to try and play football and play us off the park, we can do that to you. If you want to, sometimes we can concede that. We just need to come here, low and mid blocks, stink up the place, and let's move. So I'm happy with that. I think I agree with you in the Champions League, and on the face of it, we never got embarrassed. And I can't say it's a missed opportunity, but I do sit back across the two legs and think, what if the F up didn't happen defensively? What if certain chances were taken? Going back to what you said as well, I do think, you need a bit of stardust in certain players to be talking about getting to the latter stages of that competition. The League Cup, I'm not going to kill the club, but ultimately it's not another trophy. The FA Cup, yes, we went out to Liverpool, so there's no pride there. But I just feel since we've won that, under Arteta, we haven't given a good account of ourselves. We have taken it down to the last day of the season. But I do think, as much as I feel we've improved, some of the things that I was saying last year are still here. And I think a lot of games where we've dropped points have come down to midfield options. I think certain players have been ran into the ground. I think Arteta has been here too long and he's way too smart to sit there in February and March and say, oh, we've got one of the finished squads in the league. Like, I think with it being your fourth or so year, you're way too smart enough to know that that is something we can't afford to do. So I'd probably give it a 7. To be fair, I might be being a bit harsh. We did run it down to the last day. I am considering changing it to an 8.
7.5.
This guy, man, he tried to get me with my own logic. You know what? Let me be a bit nicer, man. An 8, really and truly. But yeah, I think it was a good account of ourselves. Who'd be the player of the season for you?
Just quickly, just because I want to pick up something you said. Arteta was asked recently how will you improve or how you sustain a title charge or something like that. It was very recent, and he said, "How are your players available?" So, mate, Partey's
saying it.
Mate,
Partey's gone. I think Tomiyasu's role might be slightly diminished as much as I love him, because unfortunately it's not a quality thing. We all know these players are quality. They need to be fit. And we're in a unique position in that half of our good players, you don't know if they're going to play week in, week out, really. So it's a difficult one.
Against Man City, who, yes, they had De Bruyne out for a long period, but other than that, didn't have any major injuries for a long
period. I think Stones has had some knocks, but other than that, not missing that.
Get moments here and there, but whatever. But in terms of major key cogs being injured, obviously they had De Bruyne, of course, but most of the time over the last 6-7 years, I can't remember sort of long periods where Man City have gone. Rodri, he's always there. Kyle Walker is always there. Ruben Dias always there. So Arteta needs to get to that point. I think, did you watch that Declan Rice men's health interview?
Yeah. The guy's lovely, man. The way he speaks about stuff, man. The way he was. Do you know what? It's so mad because he said a lot of stuff in that interview, but the thing that got me was when he's talking about pancakes. I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know why.
He seems really nice. I mean, I would say on the edge of cockiness, but I love it, and that's not a criticism.
He needs that. He's too humble, in my opinion.
There was a couple of moments where I was like, on a personal level, if I knew you, I'd be like, all right, mate. But he's Declan Rice. And as a footballer, that is exactly what he needs. So it's not criticism at all.
I would be like that if I got bought for 105 million. Mate. Come on, man. No one tell me anything.
You wouldn't get my head in this room. So yeah, honestly, yeah. But yeah, it was not meant as a criticism. I really like it. But anyway, at one point he mentioned about availability, and he, you can always read into comments, but he did say something like, I think now, he said, it's one of the most important things is being available. And there is a point, I think we're going to start like that sort of period of Wenger, sort of 2006 to 2010 or whatever it was, when it just felt like Diaby's got a knock and Wilshire's got a knock and Ramsey's at. I just don't think we'll ever see that at a top club again, because those players will simply not be recruited. I think it's so much more considered now about availability. Before it's like, well, you can probably against certain teams before the Man Cities of the world came in or whatever, you can maybe get away with signing players who maybe missed 10 games a season. You now just can't do that.
It doesn't make
availability
sense.
Has to be a thing. Yeah. Player of the season. I mean, what's great, I said this actually on a recent stream. What's great is there's so many options. Do you remember when it was like
You just knew it was
I don't
Bukayo
know,
Saka.
Danny Ceballos. Like,
He,
it
he
was just
done
like
it, boy. Danny Ceballos, you know, what a throwback. We've come a long way, you know.
we've come a long way. Do you
Wow.
know, like when we were all just like, I don't know, like give it
No
to
one cared, or it's just
Aubameyang.
going to be Saka. Now you've
Yeah,
probably, I think there's about, depending on how you look at it, at least I would say for me, 4, 5, 6
yeah,
players genuinely who
agreed,
could win that. Who you
agreed.
going with though?
Yeah, and I think in terms of nominations, I honestly think Raya could be in there. I think White could be in there. I think Saliba and Gabriel could be in there. I think Rice could be in there. I think Odegaard can be in there. Was that 6 or 7 so far? I think Havertz could be in there. I think Saka could be in there. I know people. The only one that might be a slightly rogue shout is Raya, but honestly, I think if people analyze the impact he's had on us, I honestly, and in terms of the way he came into the team, he could easily be Arsenal
And the
player of the
noise
season.
as well, bit like
Yeah,
Havertz.
yeah. I'm gonna go for Saka purely because it's the obvious pick. And sometimes I think, like, I've seen people, you know, I think people get too pressed by what people say on Twitter, but I do.
Such
Do you know what I mean? Just grow up. It's an app. Like, get over yourself.
grown
But
men
like,
fighting on social
do
media is
you know what I
always,
mean? It's
always makes me laugh,
like
man.
find a girlfriend. Come on. But like, but like, it's, you know, look, people,
This guy.
whatever. But I do think like it was like 25 goals and assists. I can't remember who said it. I think it was a guy called Sham. I'll try and find the
And to
stats.
be
But like,
fair, every week you look at Bukayo Saka, whether you know he's breaking some sort of statistic, he's up there with Ian Wright for certain things. I just think Saka's ultimately, you know, dying by the high standards. It's like you see how City are so good. Like to football nerds like me and you, we'll go and look at City and what they're doing, and it's not. But to the casual football fan, they're so good, it's boring now. I think because Saka is Saka, people have become comfortable with it.
Yeah.
You know, Declan Rice is a breath of fresh air, etc. I did a video with like this with Cecil, though, and he said a good point. And I do think Declan Rice is our player of the season, and I would probably lean towards him just purely because over the duration of the season, I think Declan Rice has performed generally at a higher level. I think there's been times he's dipped, but I think there's a handful of times he's not really been at it. And collectively, that's when the team's not been there. You look at the rest, there has been periods where we've been like, oh, what's going on with Saka? What's going on there? So for me, I'm giving it Declan Rice. If it wasn't Declan Rice, I would go with Bukayo Saka. And then I feel harsh on our three of our defenders, man. I think Saliba and Gabriel, it's weird because I think Gabriel's been better than you, but at the same time, Saliba's been monumental, really, and getting man of the matches in difficult away games. I think Benjamin White deserves a lot of flowers. I think Havertz has a case based on, you know, the expectations, but then across the course of this season, it's been a great 2024 from Kai Havertz with some moments prior. So player of this season, and I'm not sure. And you could make a case for Raya, Trossard, again, a bit with Havertz, but it's lovely to have these debates, man. We dreamed of a world like this, and people will see all the things we're talking about and say Mikel Arteta isn't doing anything. And I'm not saying that as an Arteta apologist to say, you know, the man is not free from criticism and doesn't need to win stuff. But if you just look at what Arsenal are doing with a bit of open-mindedness, you cannot deny that there is progression week in, week out, and we're on to something. Whether we win a title is another thing, but the pros are outbalanced by the cons. Who would you say is most improved player this season then as well? So we got player of the season. I went with Rice. You went with Saka. Most improved.
Most improved. So I think I've put this into two things. I think over the course of their Arsenal career, my pick is Gabriel. I think he's improved again this season in terms of
that's a shout, you know.
Coming in to now in terms of overall in their Arsenal career, Gabriel is incredible. But of improvement in terms of maybe from the last season to this, Benjamin White. I think White is
Styly, you know, he's got a shout. He's got a shout.
I think he's extraordinary. I think the way I think the way I describe it is he's gone from being part of that pod in terms of with Odegaard and Saka, and almost like the Dennis Rodman to the Pippen and Jordan. Do you know what I mean? Just being the sort of the facilitator of those two guys to go and be a star, to being a protagonist. He's making the runs. He's making the underlaps and overlaps. He's asking for the ball. He's playing those 1-2s. He's getting assists, all that sort of stuff. He's now, for me, in terms of all phases, the most complete right back in the Premier League. Not the best, but in all phases of the game. If you sort of averaged out the sort of the qualities in each phase, in terms of stepping into the midfield, in terms of even his 1v1 abilities improved, I think something on that. And I don't think he's finding himself in sticky 1v1 situations because he deals with them sooner now. I think but what about when he comes up against, and then you mentioned games from like a year ago or a year and a half ago, he's not been in many isolated 1v1 situations, possibly because of a slight tweak from Arteta, but also because I think he deals with situations sooner. So that's massively improved for me. In terms of his, there's been games this season where I've been really impressed with his passing, in terms of long range passing. I think game balls out to Martinelli. I think he gets Fulham at home, stuff like that. So in terms of all round as a player, I just think he's the most complete right back in the Prem.
I think
if I had a choice, would I still look at Kyle Walker or Reece James, whatever, and probably say, if I had to pick, maybe yeah. But this is a guy who used to play centre back, guys. So
yeah, he's a player and he's someone that doesn't watch football as well, which is amazing from him. And I think you're bang on the money with Ben White. I think the poorest game I've seen from White in a while, probably the Everton game on the end of the season. I don't think he was quite at the races, but I think he's reacted to the competition of, on paper, Tomiyasu, obviously Kirill and Zinchenko at the time, and I think Timber's really helped him improve. And we've got some great options, and he deserves his new deal, if I'm honest with you. And like I know rival fans have to be jealous of us, for partly attacking options for 1 second. Defensively, like, okay, maybe people aren't jealous of Kirill or Zinchenko, but Saliba, Gabriel, Benjamin White, they'd be worshipped if they were just one player at one club, let alone all three. And one reason I give Ben White his flowers a lot more is because, if you just want to see the improvement, go and look at how Gary Neville speaks about his fellow fullback now versus when he signed for the football club, really and truly. So again, it just shows Mikel Arteta has a short, medium and long-term vision. Who would be underwhelmer of the season for you then? I've got two. I hope you don't say them because I'm going to try not to spread the PR. But like,
underwhelm. I think there's a few options, but it's. I mean, like for example, like Zinchenko's up there, but
which one truly in your heart?
But I don't think it's this season. Over the course of his Arsenal career, it's Fabio Vieira. But like again, this season. Is that fair? I don't know. I just don't think he's suitable.
No, that's what you feel. That's what you feel with Fabio Vieira. I'm asking you the player you feel for you that's underperformed or been the underperformer. For me, I'd probably say you could say for me, I would say Smith Rowe because I thought he'd get back to it to some degree. Hasn't done that. If I'm truly honest in my heart, it's the two Brazilians in Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah. Jesus would probably be up there for me. I don't know. I think the problem is I can see so many reasons why, like especially with Martinelli, like there's a lot of reasons why. I think maybe
of course, in terms of mitigating factors,
but with underwhelming, I suppose there's an idea that you can be whelmed. There was a sort of a set level. I don't think I have expected Vieira or Smith Rowe to be loads better than they were. So, and same with Zinchenko, to be honest. So I think probably Jesus maybe then, because I think I expected Jesus to be better than he was this season.
Does it concern you? Like, obviously, we spoke about him earlier. Like, are you concerned about Gabriel Jesus? Because for me, I think he needs to have surgery. Not a doctor, but clearly there needs to be something to get back going. But as much as I'm a loyal supporter of Gabriel Jesus, and I'm not a physio or a doctor, physically you look like you're in problems, man. Like it looks like you're steadily declining, and that is now where I'm getting shook.
Yeah, I compared it to Hector Bellerin in the
exactly another shot. Yeah, kind of like that.
There's players who everyone's reliant on the physicality, but they have a certain burst that means that everything else can kind of work and function. Hector Bellerin's abilities. If you want to take away the pace, he's a pretty average player. But when he's got the pace, his average-ish, technical quality can shine because he's quicker than you. So, he can play that final ball or whatever it is more times. It's a kind of the foundation of everything. I think Jesus with his sort of 5-yard burst, as tacticos want to call it, or the sort of the flip round the corner, or whatever, or the sort of the
Brazilians, as I say.
Yeah, he's almost the Brazilian. That's such a good way of putting it. Yeah, the bounce that he has, that we all feel. That sort of remember that Leicester game with that 4-2, where it's like he's like ping ponging around the
first 4 months from Gabriel Jesus at this club. Yeah, trust. I thought we was going clear. We made it. Things are different now, but the beginning of the end was obviously December, man. Yeah. Do you think Arteta has to win a trophy this year, next season? I have to ask you that. It's what people told me to ask. Again, does he have to win a trophy next season?
I think we're approaching the time where, especially in the cup competitions, they'll start to become a little bit more pivotal for me. They'll start to become a little like I'm never. I look at this manager, and he for me is in. He is in. I think you have Pep, and then I think there's a next rung down of like young-ish coaches who are looking to be the next guy in world football. I think you have Xabi Alonso in there. I think potentially, there's all sorts, De Zerbi, or, could be Kieran McKenna if he goes, whatever. All these sort of young coaches who seem very fluid and forward thinking and are highly rated within the game. And, Vincent Company going to Bayern, where's all their influence come from? It's come from Pep. Do you know what I mean? This is why.
It's that school of thinking. So indirectly, La Masia, but Pep.
Yeah, it's basically Pep.
Yeah.
So, and then, above him, Cruyff and so on and so on. So I think, for me, he's in that next rung down of sort of the next group of managers. So I'm never, for me, getting rid of him would seem, it's like for who, not to, and then certain people pull out it's get Ancelotti or get this guy, get that guy. I hear that, but we've come not that we've come so far down this road, but for me, I'm so convinced that this project is going to land at some point. It has to be considered on a case-by-case basis. I don't view things through, did he win a trophy, did he not? I just want to feel like, did we improve? Every single season, we've improved. And in the end, that will mean we win trophies. If you improve every year, the alarming thing for me will be if we don't improve. Do you know what I mean? Then I might be saying, okay, well, has he taken us as far as we can? Are our numbers, but are our numbers dropping? Are we, feeling like we watch the team, are we feeling less secure in them? Are we feeling as though the players aren't playing for him anymore? At that point, then I'm willing and open to conversations, kind of regardless of trophies. Even if we won a trophy, I'd be saying, not sure. I have to focus on process. The process is the thing that gets you there, and it has got us, to where we are.
And keeps you there as well, man. And crucially, what people forget: once we get in the room, you want to stay there.
Yeah. So we focus on outcomes. For me, I'm looking at this bit and I'm going, is he improving us? And every single season he is. So at some point you'll get the outcome. We could win the quadruple now. That's a lie. We could win something, let's a Carabao Cup next season. And some people will say, well, there you go, he's won a trophy. If we've got worse, that will be more concerning, because it's like, well, we think we can go out and win Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues if we stick with this guy. And yes, okay, we've won something, but we look way worse. So what's going on? We are going to have a season soon where Arteta might not be able to improve us or might not take us the right direction or whatever.
There's going to be naturally, not regression is not the right word, but I've been telling people this. As much as I don't want it to happen, and I don't think it will be the case next season, God, please allow me. There's naturally going to be a period where it's not just steadily progression. You're going to be hit a spike in the road, essentially. Where I say with Arteta, I'm not an Arteta sexual. I think there's more pros than cons to keep the guy. I think, even the harshest things I could criticize him with and things that he needs to improve, they're outbalanced by numerous things. And again, I don't really care about other clubs, but if this guy became available, so many people want him. I don't want it to be in vain. Obviously, I want him to succeed. And I think the way we're going, naturally, the conversation is shifting to getting us over the line. On the topic of getting us over the line, as much as I take Bukayo Saka, love the guy, I think he's a great player. But if there was somebody that is 20 times the ability of Bukayo Saka, there was a feasibility in getting him to the club, I'm going to want to do that, because that is the dynamics of things. If you can present me with an option, a definitive option that, is better than Arteta, if we got to that, then fair enough, do it. It's Arteta. It's not Arteta FC, it's Arsenal FC. But I think right now it makes sense. And I do feel people like to think they've got all the answers, both in the insiders or the camp and the outsiders. We don't know if keeping this guy is going to work. We don't know if sacking the guy is going to work. People say Carlo Ancelotti, big him up, great manager, would do well at Arsenal, but he's not going to get to do Real Madrid stuff at Arsenal. It's two very different remits. It's two very different working cultures. So it's never really made sense in that regards to me. And the one thing above everything I like about Arteta is this burning desire for hunger. As much as I love Arsene Wenger and he did have stamina in his motivation, I do think towards the end of his years, he did sound a bit defeated and a bit defeative. I don't think Arteta is like that. You look at someone like Ten Hag, who blames everybody, probably his wife, before he looks at his own stuff, and he's still waffling about our club. Arteta takes responsibility. And there was a point, you was always putting his old clips on Twitter. He's been doing that when it wasn't cool at Arsenal to do that. Like, it's easy to do that now because you've earned that authority. When we're getting battered and, you got Pablo Marie, as you said, very difficult to convince people or stick to your guns. So that means he's always had an idea of where he wanted to go. So we just have to keep going, man. Really, like
and you said it earlier. If Arteta left Arsenal, every club in world football wants him.
Chelsea are using him as a guide point now, or better yet, the Arsenal guide point, man.
So what does that tell you? Because if Pep went, City would want him. If Ancelotti went, Madrid would want him. If Hansi Flick doesn't work out, Barca want him. So what does that tell you?
Exactly. He's a man in high demand, man. He struck gold.
Exactly. So yeah. For me, I think you're right. Like it's there's so many more pros than cons. And again, none of this is to say there's nothing to improve about Arteta. He's a perfect manager. There's no such thing as a perfect manager. We've just got to look at what we have, focus on the process, and that will get it. It has improved us every single season. So at some point, you can only keep improving for so long. You'll win something.
Listen, I hope we win something, man. But Alex, the last thing I want to ask you, Bruno Guimaraes, like, would you have him? Because someone did ask me to ask you that. I have asked you before, but
I don't know. I have honestly, I haven't. Like, I've watched him against us, and I've watched him in a couple of games this season. I need to watch him a little bit more. My friend, George, I think you spoke to George, on here. Like, George speaks about him and says, in terms of like his concerns about his out of possession work, in terms of also how he receives off the back line. I don't know. I'm concerned slightly about the price. I'm slightly concerned about the temperament. I like the idea in terms of like the name and whatever, but in practice, I haven't thought about it enough. So I don't know. Sorry, it's a bit of a cop out answer. Would you have it?
Nah, man, you're being on. This is why you're on the channel. You're being honest. I'd rather you say honestly what you feel than say, "Oh yeah, he's great," and bring up heat maps and things you don't believe in. For me, I think he'd be perfect. I think it comes down to the price tag, so I don't think it doesn't happen. I like his mentality. I do think he's good at receiving. I think he can play in tight spaces. I think he can play as an 8 and a 6 and kind of contribute. The perfect option. I don't think he's mad amazing, but I definitely feel he would. One of those players. It's a bit like Isaac now, really. Everything, but I think guys like Bruno Guimaraes, I think you've got to get them when they're. You see the fees that they're talking about, it gets a bit ridiculous. It's a bit like Isaac. There's links with Isaac initially, and Arsenal fans were chasing cars and saying he's going for his circumstances and mitigating factors around that. But had we have got him, even Jesus isn't here, and maybe even Kai Havertz isn't here, and things like that. Those players before they end up where they are, because as you know, the money in the Premier 105 million for Declan Rice, with the greatest of respect to West Ham, you go back to the come calling or anyone, it's a myth. 80 million for Harry Maguire. So I do think he's one admired. I do think he's up there with the Douglas Nanas in that they're all on a list of various degrees, but it's not just ability. It's can you get this player? Is there a budget for this player? And there's obviously factors that me and you can't comprehend because we're not flies on the wall in the negotiating table. So I'm having him if we could. Gyökeres, it seems like that's not going to happen. I'm having Sesko if we can, but I'm sure me and you will be doing videos and speaking about many players that we've been linked with or players that we actually signed, man. But on this, man, I know you had a great night, so let you come off the live stream.
Hang on. You were the one who had the good night.
Bro, I've got to throw someone under the bus, innit? So yeah, you threw me under the bus at the start. So I thought, yeah, let's go again. Like I tried to do it in a sneaky little way, man. But Alex, it's always amazing having you on the platform, man. Let people know where they can find you, man. Not that they don't know.
The Different Knock on YouTube. Search me up on Twitter at DiffKnock, and also my personal one is at AM on football.
There you have it, folks. Obviously, all his information will be in the description of the video. His YouTube name will be what do they call it again? When you add them in the title. So yeah, the title of the channel will be added in the title on YouTube. So yeah, man, have a butchers of the content, people. He's always doing great content, and I'm sure with it being the off season, he'll be exploring a lot more, and there'll be a lot more reflective content. I'm sure we spoke about a lot of things, people, that you lot agree and disagree with. So as usual, join the debate and the conversation. But for now, Alex, one love, my guy. Let me let you get out of it. People, Deluded, we are out. Peace.